Willem de Kooning, born April 24, 1904 in Rotterdam, Netherlands, an American painter who was a leading advocate of abstract expressionism. Abstract expressionism is a term used for an American painting movement that flourished in New York City after World War II, most closely associated with its counterpart action painting. The varied work produced by abstract expressionists convey a strong emotional or expressive content that resists definition as a definable style. Being driven by emotion, this form of art consists of diverse, overlapping sources and inspirations. Many of young artists had their start in the 1930s using this form of art. De Kooning created a name for himself with his violent imagery and impulsive, energetic technique shown in all of his works. Traveling to the United States in 1926 as a stowaway, De Kooning settled in Hoboken, New Jersey, living self-sufficiently as a house painter. Moving to a studio apartment in Manhattan in 1927, this put De Kooning on a path to becoming one of the most influential painters of the 1950s. Willem de Kooning would later take inspiration from people like Stuart Davis, Arshile Gorky, and John Graham, pushing him deeper into the vibrant New York scene. Kooning's collective past has driven him to use his emotional and feelings in his works. Abstract art moved him to create more masterpieces, and as the years progressed, de Kooning became more and more interested in abstract artworks. By the 1950s, Willem de Kooning had developed a unique set of skills and techniques. The 1950s. With the end of World War II and the United States facing substantial economic regrowth, the abstract expressionist movement began to gain large support. Abstract expressionist artists were characterized for their use of abstract imagery, highly expressive technique, and monumental scale to convey universal themes of struggle, life, and death, made relevant after the events of World War II. These paintings were non-landscape or genre, carrying themes in which are resolutely abstract. Nothing is portrayed as they exist in the real world. Painters following the movement used monumental size to enclose the viewer in the painting, leaving their view full to be only the painting itself, and consume the mind and thoughts of the viewer. These would often portray the energy, value, and physical presence of the artist himself. This artistic movement had a meaning to it. Abstract expressionism emerged in a stage of Cold War politics and social and cultural conservatism. World War II had positioned the United States as a global power, and in the years following the conflict, many Americans were able to enjoy the benefits of unprecedented economic growth. But by the mid-1950s, the spirit of optimism had changed into a strong mix of power and paranoia. In a society in which political repression weighed as heavily as it did in the United States, fueled by the fear of communist infiltration, abstract expressionism was for many the expression of freedom. The freedom for creative, controversial works of art. The freedom symbolized by action painting, by the uncontrollable expressionism of artists completely without restraint. De Kooning was developing his own version of a highly charged, gestural style, alternating between abstract work and powerful, iconic figurative images. Mainly being remembered for it, De Kooning's well-known Woman series begun in 1950. Many of his works took the viewer in, likewise he did with the art world in the 1950s. His controversial and groundbreaking painting methods provided post-war America a meaningful context for the movement's emphasis. Carrying on into the future, Willem de Kooning's values spread to future ideals. As a result of the movement, pop art became a huge art theme in the late 50s. The focus of desire, frustration, inner conflict, and pleasure all allowed de Kooning's methods to influence people by the masses. Different movements formed in relation to the work of de Kooning as well as other expressionist painters. For example, pop art, which emphasized mass media and consumer culture. Willem de Kooning can be defined as a leader of the abstract expressionist movement, which effectively shifted the art world's focus from Europe to New York in the post-war years. The paintings made during this movement were seen widely in traveling exhibitions and throughout publications. In the wake of abstract expressionism, new generations of artists, both American and European, were profoundly marked by the breakthroughs made by him and the first generations. These artists would go on to create their own important expressions based on the genius this time period shaped for the future.